Okay, it's going to be a review of WrestleMania 6. This featured the champion versus champion match, featuring Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. And you almost forget that this was a champion versus champion match. It's probably like the closest thing you ever gotten to what's going to happen at this year's WrestleMania with the Undisputed Championship match. So yeah, you got the IC champion versus the WWF champion. The Ultimate Challenge. Great main event. Very well documented how good the main event is. I would actually say it's the best WrestleMania main event up to this point. So we're going all the way back to April Fool's Day, 1990, the Sky Dome in Toronto. This is a great venue for the WWE. I just think crowd reaction-wise, this was pretty much the standard. I think both main events came off great crowd reaction in WrestleMania 6 and WrestleMania 18. Of course, Hogan Rock was not the main event, but yeah, 67,000. In attendance, not as much as WrestleMania 18, but the pay-per-view buy rate was actually not as good as WrestleMania 5. WrestleMania 5 is 700,000 plus. This is pretty much in the mid 500,000. So it doesn't really surprise me. I think when you look at this show, all the promotion pretty much lied on Hogan versus Warrior. I think with WrestleMania 5, you had a little bit more depth, promoting Piper's Pit. You got a well-defined Intercontinental Championship match. You just didn't have, like, WrestleMania 6, it just doesn't have, like, that really well-built match on the undercard that would make you want to, order the show. This was like, either you're into Hogan versus Warrior or you're not. So maybe that's why the buy rate did suffer. Plus, I think Hogan and Savage, you could definitely argue that it was, the storyline was a little bit more intriguing than this. This was Babyface versus Babyface. And, maybe that hurt it to a degree as well. But yeah, I think this is a great main event. I think it's the best WrestleMania main event up to that point. I still think it's arguably Hogan's and Warrior's best match ever. You could argue the WrestleMania 5 main event is a little bit better, but we'll get to that when we get to the main event. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual WrestleMania, there's just so many matches on this show. I think everything was like watchable. Everything was good. It flowed really well, but nothing really stole the show. And like I said, I just think from a storyline standpoint, like a lot of the matches just didn't seem that important. I mean, they just really didn't. And it seems to me like a lot of the tag team stuff wasn't the original plan. I'm hearing now that they were supposed to go Hart Foundation and the Rockers, maybe tear it up at WrestleMania, but for whatever the reason, there's some political stuff as to why they didn't do that. But let's get right down to the show. First match of the night, you got Rick Martel taking on KoKo B. Ware. Short, sweet, really, really good stuff while it lasted. I thought Rick the Model Martel looked really good out there. KoKo was fine. I thought everything they did was just, fine. It's just a little bit on the short side. Didn't really have, kind of ended it as soon as you were really getting into it. But, big win for Rick Martel to open up a WrestleMania and start off with a bang. That's not a bad spot to be in. But I don't think anyone really talks about this when you talk about, one of the best WrestleMania openers. So next up, we got Demolition defending the tag team titles against the Colossal Connection of Andre the Giant and Haku, managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. This was more about the moment after the match is over. I believe this is like Andre the Giant's last, big match for the WWF. So they had the after party. They had a good, kind of send off for Andre. I believe one of the highlights was Bret Hart actually did a really nice painting of him. But yeah, they kind of ended Andre's career on a high note as Bobby Heenan's kind of smacking him. Then he starts choking him out. So you get one of these gentle giant face turns from Andre the Giant. So that was cool. And Haku tried to, turn on him as well. But yeah, good moment for Andre. Demolition defends the belts. This was more theater than actually wrestling. But at the time, Demolition was still like one of the hottest acts in the company. So, okay, next up we got Earthquake with Jimmy Hart taking on Hercules. So Earthquake makes really quick work of Hercules. kind of a sign of things to come, that Hercules is not going to be a big player like he was in the late 80s, and Earthquake was going to be, you know, the go-to guy for Hogan to wrestle after he took his hiatus in Hollywood with Suburban Commandos. So yeah, they made Earthquake look really strong there. Earthquake was good. I mean, he's not the most attractive guy in the world in terms of marketing value, but for his size, he was you know, really agile, and his finisher always got a great reaction, even though like his finisher looked really safe. It looked like he barely was sitting on the guy, but you know, the Earthquake was definitely you know, an effective finisher. Okay, next up we got Brutus the Barber Beefcake taking on Mr. Perfect. At the time, Perfect is actually managed by the Genius, not Bobby the Brain Heenan, the Genius. But yeah, Genius is actually Macho Man's, I believe, younger brother, Lonnie Poffo. But yeah, this was definitely memorable. You know, the video, I probably rented this videotape more than any other VHS in the Coliseum video library, but you always remember the Genius getting his head shaved by Brutus the Barber after the match is over. I thought the match could have been a little bit better. I think Perfect's match the very next year against Bossman was a lot better than this for the IC title. You know, Perfect was doing some really, really cool stuff. You know, he was able to showcase his moveset here. He did the throwback, the kind of the, you know, Cena used to call it the throwback, but it's kind of a running neck breaker that Perfect did here. And yeah, I thought the match definitely had a lot of potential. It was fun while it lasted, but I believe it ended up being a disqualification because of the Genius. But, you know, just seeing Brutus shave the Genius's head, definitely a memorable moment there. Okay, next up we got a match that's actually cut from the WWE Network. We got Bad News Brown taking on Roddy Piper. Okay, so this is the match where Piper actually painted himself half white, or no, he was, you know, he just painted himself half black. I don't know the backstory behind this. Apparently it was Piper's idea. Apparently Andre the Giant you know, screwed up the solution, and they had a tough time getting it off. So Piper was actually hung over in the airport with a 4-foot Mickey Mouse doll for his daughter and a cowboy hat. And I don't know, I'm not really that interested in the story, but you know, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, looking back on it, you can make the argument that it's racist, but I don't know. It seems to me like Bad News Brown didn't have a huge issue with it. But, you know, the bottom line is it's scrapped from the WWE Network. It technically no longer exists like a Chris Benoit match. But, you know, my biggest problem with it is I just don't think the match delivered. I thought there was good tension. I could see why both guys started feuding with each other. I'm not sure if they have a history from Canada. I know Piper was actually born in Saskatoon, and Bad News was part of the Stampede promotion up in Calgary with Brett. But yeah, I mean, I just wasn't a big fan of the way it ended. Ended in a double countout. There was really no payoff. You know, you would think you would put Piper in something a little bit, you know, more intriguing than this. There's rumors that Piper was unhappy and was thinking about leaving the company. But then there's other stories I've heard where Piper said this time in the WWF he was able to have 4 kids because of merchandise royalties. So I don't know. Maybe Piper just wasn't happy with the night. But it sounds like it was kind of a fiasco for Piper in terms of trying to get all that paint off. But, you know, I think he was trying to show that Bad News Brown was two-faced. But, you know, I guess he just picked the wrong guy to do it against. Okay, so next up we got the greatest squash match in WrestleMania history. We got the Hart Foundation taking on the Bolsheviks. You know, the Bolsheviks are doing the Soviet national anthem, shades of Rocky IV there. And then all of a sudden the Hart Foundation attack them from behind, and they do the Hart Foundation clothesline finish. And yeah, Brett seemed like he was happy with this, though. You know, Brett looked really cool. He looked at the camera, does the 1, 2, 3 with his fingers, and you know, they go home happy. But, you know, Brett wasn't upset that he wasn't in a higher profile match or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, it would have been, you know, you got the Hart Foundation on this show. Why not put him against the Rockers and let them open up for 20 minutes? And, you know, you would have gotten a classic there. But, you know, for whatever reason, that didn't happen. Okay, so next up we got the Barbarian with Bobby Heenan taking on Tito Santana. This is another match that I thought was going really well. I thought Tito looked great here. You know, he was athletic. You know, he was doing, you know, just all of his offense just looked really engaging. And, you know, Barbarian actually got the upset victory with the assist of Bobby Heenan. And, you know, before the match ended, you know, they really didn't get a chance to develop any sort of flow, and the match just kind of ended abruptly. But, you know, it was fine while it lasted, though. I'll definitely say that. Okay, so next up we got Dusty Rhodes and the Sweet Sapphire with Miss Elizabeth in their corner. So Elizabeth makes her return. She did kind of a interview with some, you know, gossip lady that was really into celebrity gossip at the time. And so we finally see Elizabeth, and, you know, she's still kind of angry with Savage for the heel turn and the association with Queen Sherri. So she's in Dusty Rhodes' corner. So Randy Savage is actually teaming up with Sherri. It just made more sense for Savage to team up with Sherri because of, you know, Savage being a heel and being the Macho King. He needed that evil queen. So I get the association. I get why they did this match. But at the same time, I'm looking at it. You got the second biggest star in the NWA going up against the second biggest star in the WWF. I mean, you could have had a classic here. And it's still another really attractive opponent that Savage could have continued his Mr. WrestleMania streak with. But it kind of ended, you know, with this match right here. This is, you know, in some ways, this is like the first couples match in WWF history, or intergender tag team match. But, you know, it was what it was. I mean, it's the same kind of, you know, match that The Miz and Edge had at the Royal Rumble, just very watered down. You know, anytime Sapphire was in the ring with Sherri, it just wasn't pretty to watch. You would love to get something more out of Savage out of a show like this. I thought maybe he was, you know, injured or something as to why this didn't go too long and just really didn't deliver. But I didn't hear anything about Savage being injured here, so I don't know. Just not a very. It's just not the way I would have showcased either one here. But, you know, they were both involved with women, so I guess it definitely made sense from that standpoint. So out of all the women that have been associated with the Rhodes family, from Sapphire to Marlena or Terry Runnels to Brandy Rhodes to, trying to think of someone else, who's your favorite woman from the Rhodes family? I'm still gonna have to go with Terry Runnels without a doubt. So. But you can make a case that Brandy's definitely the best looking one. I wouldn't disagree with that. So next up, we got the Orient Express taking on the Rockers. Also, the Orient Express are Mr. Fuji. This is a different version of them. I believe the version at the Royal Rumble 1991 was slightly different here. You know, I thought this could have been just as good as the Rumble. For whatever reason, the Rockers were having some political issues with. I guess maybe behavior or partying at the time. You've always heard these rumors, even going back to when Shawn and Marty first got there. But yeah, they should have been something a lot better than this. This definitely could have been something. Not going to say something special, but, you know, I thought it was going really well, and then it just had a really, you know, deflating ending right there. So we move on. Next up, we got Jim Duggan taking on Dino Bravo, with Jimmy Hart and an Earthquake at Dino Bravo's ringside. So yeah, like I said, guys, this show just has way too many matches. But once again, this wasn't bad. What was interesting about this match is that Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes down with the American flag, and we're in Canada, and he's still doing the USA thing. So it's just funny, you know. Even though there were some people booing him, you just didn't hear like the type of boos that you heard at WrestleMania 18 or in the Ruthless Aggression era if you were in Canada. It just felt like this was still more of a, you know, childhood crowd. You know, maybe that's why the boos just sound so drowned out. Duggan just didn't get the heat that, you know, someone else would have gotten in America in 2004 in Montreal, for example. But yeah, the match is all right. You know, Duggan got a you know, kind of a fun victory over Dino Bravo, and it ended like right before it started the drag. So okay, so next up we got the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase with Virgil taking on Jake the Snake Roberts. Definitely one of the highlights of the show. They actually did get a decent amount of time on there. I wish they could have gotten more time. Okay, so Ted DiBiase has stated that this is one of his favorite match at WrestleMania and one of his favorite programs. Jake was great here. Yeah, I would definitely agree. The promo is definitely a breath of fresh air. This is definitely a vintage Jake Roberts babyface promo. I think it works so well is because, you know, DiBiase is kind of the opposite of Jake, especially when you compare the real life situation to the kayfabe character of DiBiase. Jake just had a lot to work with here. Plus, it's for the $1 Million Championship, so Jake actually had possession of the belt. Ultimately, DiBiase ends up winning the belt back. But you know what? I've heard some people state in some videos and posts in the comment section that it's actually one of the more memorable WrestleMania matches. I would definitely disagree with that. I just don't think it had enough of a platform to really, you know, get into that extra gear. That's the best I would say. But I would definitely say it's underrated, though. It is really good. It's remarkable that they turned it around here because the fans actually started doing the wave. I don't know if that was a sign of disrespect. You know, there's other pay-per-views in Canada where it was. JBL Undertaker from SummerSlam 2004. To be exact. But it's funny, like as soon as the wave started going, like it seemed like the fans got more into it, and then some of the pinning reversals just came off really, really good. Virgil was the MVP here in terms of the actual winning of the match. He was able to actually throw DiBiase back into the ring as Jake got counted out. He was able to save DiBiase from the snake as well. So it was definitely cool. I think everybody went home happy. It was, you know, you would have liked a more well-defined finish here. I think the storyline definitely called for them to even have a little bit more time out there. But yeah, still definitely one of the best things on the show. But, you know, to argue that it's a top 25 WrestleMania match, I'd be lying if I said that was accurate. Okay, so next up we got Big Boss Man getting his revenge on his former tag team partner. Akeem was slick out there. $1 Million Man actually, for whatever the reason, stayed out there and attacked Big Boss Man for, you know, further feuds down the road, which is smart. You know, Big Boss Man was in the midst of a huge face turn. He needed a solid heel to go up against, and I think DiBiase was that guy. But, you know, nonetheless, Boss Man still defeats Akeem within 2 minutes. The match is fine for what it was, but, you know, it just kind of felt like filler. Okay, so next up we got Rick Rude taking on Jimmy Snuka. At the time, this just felt like Snuka was being used as an enhancement talent. They needed to make Rude look really strong here because, you know, Rude was someone that, you know, they could really trust with Warrior. So Rude actually wins with the Rude Awakening in a couple of minutes. Snuka was actually mocking Rude, but it kind of backfired on him, and Rude really kind of dominated the last couple of minutes of the match. Okay, so next up, we got the winner-takes-all match for the WWF Intercontinental Championship and the WWF Championship. Hulk Hogan taking on the Ultimate Warrior. God, 25 minutes. Yeah, I didn't realize it was that long. But yeah, for 25 minutes, I thought it was cool. I mean, I've talked about the match plenty of times. I think what this has on Savage and Hogan, I just felt like at WrestleMania 5, you know, Savage was still kind of a victim of, you know, the smaller guy and overprotecting Hogan. And I just felt like the match was definitely, it lacked a little bit of creative freedom. But here, I just felt like Warrior and Hogan, the crowd was incredible here. I would definitely say that they were more into Hogan than Warrior, but at the same time, it was pretty much split. It's a totally different atmosphere than WrestleMania 18, but it was still like real. The atmosphere in Toronto here was still really, really good. I just felt like this took you on more of a roller coaster of a ride. I would definitely say though, like you could definitely argue that they didn't do anything that great. You know, they didn't do anything mind blowing. But for whatever reason, like everything they did, it just felt really engaging, and it just felt like it felt important. To me, this is the most meaningful. This is one of the most meaningful title changes I think I've ever seen. And it's funny that Hogan has really shot himself in the foot, because this is like one of his, you know, crowning achievements, one of his most admirable moments. But for whatever reason, whether it be, you know, trashing Warrior in the book, or, you know, trying to get the victory back as rumored in WCW at Halloween Havoc, the moment's kind of tainted for Hogan in some ways. But I don't know, man. I just felt like this was just one of those matches that it just really took you on a ride. It really did. And there was really some, I don't really think you've seen Hogan in this light before, where you really had to rely on him as being more of a ring general, you know, more of a guy that was going to really dictate and kind of, you know, carry this match. And then at the same time, you know, you got to give Warrior credit for, you know, being out there for that long. You know, some of the things he did was really impressive, specifically the gorilla press. And just a lot of the stuff. I thought the test of strength, some people clown on it and make fun of it and say, oh, it looks like they're giving each other a blowjob. That's just, I don't know. I thought it was, you know, it just had a sense of, you know, importance, the whole entire match. And, you know, they did some creative stuff as well. You know, the double clotheslines, the Hogan selling of the knee, you know, Hogan, you know, missing the leg drop, Warrior doing the splash. It was just very well executed. You know, it's not a pretty match, but at the same time, I don't think, you know, two guys that had a reputation for not being good wrestlers, you know, overachieved this much before. So yeah, I still love the match. You know, you could argue it's more of a match for kids. It's not really a match for smart marks, but at the time, I think it was huge. I think it needed to be done. You could definitely argue that Warrior's moment, you know, maybe it could have came a little bit later. Maybe at WrestleMania 7, you know, the timing would have been more appropriate. You know, there were guys, Hogan was one of them. Ted DiBiase was another one that were arguing that, you know, he wasn't going to appreciate it. He just wasn't ready for it. But, you know, at the time, I think you just had to take a gamble. You know, you really did. I know Hogan looked really upset, you know, after the match was over, but I would definitely say Warrior really got himself up to a point where, you know, he was definitely like on the same level as Hogan. Like he definitely was. And a lot of people try to, you know, a lot of people try to really downplay Warrior as being one-dimensional and couldn't carry the ball. And you know, in some ways you could agree with that. You know, I don't think I think Warrior's biggest obstacle was doing what Savage did to promote this show, like going on Arsenio, going on talk shows. It just wasn't his high point. You know, some of the Warrior promo on the show was, you know, it really was a little bit over the top. It really was, you know, something to see. Kind of in a negative way, but you know, that's just who he was. But I'm glad they gave him the chance. You know, you know, it would have been cool to see a rematch at WrestleMania 7, but for whatever the reason, they decided to go with Hogan again. But you know, Hogan, you know, he wasn't ready to drop the ball. You know, to drop that spot to Warrior for you know, for obvious reasons. But yeah, the moment still holds up, and you know, I really feel like the Ultimate Warrior is, you know, there are still a lot of good things about him, and just there's still a lot to like about this moment, no matter how many people trash him, or you know. But yeah, that's WrestleMania 6, and I'm out.